An orphan found and returned a lost wallet, never realizing it held the key to her true identity. Mia Winters had lived by a simple code: take nothing that isn't yours, give nothing that can't be spared. It was how she'd survived 22 years in a world that had never quite wanted her. Rain pelted the cracked pavement as Mia hurried home from her late shift at Gino's Diner, her shoulders hunched against the November chill. Her apartment, a shabby one-bedroom walk-up above a convenience store, waited 6 blocks away, promising little warmth, but at least offering shelter. The wind whipped through her thin jacket, a cast-off from the community donation center where she volunteered on Sundays. Her fingers, red and numb, clutched her purse closer to her body. Inside, exactly $47.33, her tips for the night. Enough for the electric bill, maybe, if she skipped lunch for a week. The streetlights flickered, casting uneven shadows across the empty sidewalk. Most people had the sense to stay inside on nights like this, when the rain seemed determined to wash away everything not firmly anchored to the earth. Mia felt that way sometimes, untethered, drifting, waiting for the next storm to sweep her away. Something dark caught her eye, a rectangle of leather gleaming wet under the harsh glare of a streetlight. A wallet. Expensive looking, the kind she'd only seen in display cases or clutched in the hands of the businessmen who sometimes stopped by the diner for coffee before heading downtown. She stopped, glancing around. The street was deserted. Mia knelt, her jeans soaking through immediately as they pressed against the wet concrete. She lifted the wallet with trembling fingers, feeling its unexpected weight. Opening it revealed what she already knew would be inside: cash. Lots of it. Several crisp $100 bills, neatly folded. More money than she made in 2 weeks of double shifts. Her heartbeat quickened, a warm flush spreading across her chest despite the cold. With this, she could pay her rent on time, buy groceries, maybe even get that prescription filled that she'd been putting off for months. No one would know. No one would care. No one except Mia herself. She closed the wallet with a snap that seemed too loud in the empty street. Inside was an ID card: Alexander Donovan, age 65. An address on Mapleton Drive, the wealthy part of town where houses had actual yards and people didn't need to choose between heat and food. Mia slipped the wallet into her pocket, feeling its weight like a stone. She knew what it was like to lose something important, to have something taken from you. She changed direction, moving away from the comfort of her waiting apartment. The rain intensified, plastering her dark hair to her forehead, running in rivulets down her neck and beneath her collar. Each step seemed to whisper a question. Why bother? Who would do this for you? She had no answer except the quiet certainty that burned in her chest. This was who she was, perhaps the only thing she knew for certain about herself. Mapleton Drive stretched before her like something from another world. Trees lined the street, their skeletal November branches reaching toward grand houses set back from the road. Perfectly manicured lawns, even in late autumn. Luxury cars gleaming in circular driveways. Number 1842 stood at the end of the street, a large colonial-style home with warm yellow light spilling from the windows. A place that had never known emptiness. Mia hesitated at the gate, suddenly aware of her soaked clothes, her worn shoes, her obvious belonging to a different world than this one. Her finger hovered over the intercom button, doubt creeping up her spine like the chill from her wet clothes. Before she could press it, the front door opened. A tall man stepped onto the porch, silhouetted against the golden light behind him. His silver hair caught the glow from the porch light as he peered out into the darkness. "Hello?" he called, his voice deep and uncertain. "Is someone there?" Mia stepped forward, into the circle of light cast by the porch lamp. "Mr. Donovan? I found your wallet." Alexander Donovan squinted through wire-rimmed glasses, taking in the dripping young woman standing at his gate. Confusion flickered across his face, followed by disbelief. "You found my wallet? And you brought it here? In this weather?" Mia nodded, suddenly unable to find her voice. She held out the leather wallet, water still beating on its surface. Alexander hurried down the steps, an umbrella forgotten in his hand. He reached the gate and took the wallet, examining it with obvious relief. "Everything's there," Mia said quietly. "I didn't take anything." Something in her tone made Alexander look up sharply, studying her face more carefully. His eyes, a striking shade of blue that seemed oddly familiar, widened slightly. "You're soaked through," he said. "Please come inside. Let me at least offer you a hot drink and a chance to dry off." Mia hesitated. She'd delivered the wallet. Her task was complete. The sensible thing would be to decline politely and head home. "I've just made tea," Alexander added, opening the gate, "and my housekeeper left some fresh scones before she left. Far too many for just me." Perhaps it was the rain, or the bone-deep chill, or the simple human kindness in his voice, something she encountered so rarely, but Mia found herself nodding. "Just for a minute," she said. "To warm up?" Alexander's home was everything Mia had imagined and more. Hardwood floors gleamed beneath Persian rugs. A fireplace crackled in a living room filled with leather-bound books and comfortable furniture. The scent of cinnamon and old wood hung in the air. "The bathroom is down the hall if you'd like to dry off," Alexander said, gesturing to a doorway. "I can lend you something dry to wear?" "That's not necessary," Mia said automatically, though she was shivering now, her body finally acknowledging how cold she truly was. Alexander disappeared upstairs anyway, returning with a soft gray sweater and a pair of sweatpants. "My daughter left these last time she visited. They should fit you." Mia took the clothes with murmured thanks, disappearing into the bathroom. It was larger than her entire kitchen, with marble countertops and fluffy towels that felt like clouds against her skin. She changed quickly, hanging her wet clothes over the shower rod. When she emerged, Alexander was in the kitchen, pouring tea into delicate china cups that looked like they belonged in a museum. He'd removed his suit jacket and rolled up the sleeves of his crisp white shirt, making him seem suddenly more approachable. "Milk? Sugar?" he asked, as if serving tea to dripping strangers was an everyday occurrence. "Both, please," Mia said, sinking into a chair at the kitchen island. The sweater was soft against her skin, smelling faintly of lavender. Alexander pushed a cup toward her, along with a plate containing a scone. "I never got your name." "Mia. Mia Winters." His hand paused momentarily as he stirred his own tea. "Winters?" he repeated, something unreadable flashing across his face. "That's an unusual surname." "It's not my real one," Mia said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. The warmth of the kitchen and the simple kindness of this stranger had loosened something in her chest. "I grew up in the foster system. When I aged out, I chose it for myself. Because I was found in winter." Alexander's spoon clinked against his cup. "Found?" Mia shrugged, taking a sip of the tea. It was better than anything she'd ever tasted. "Abandoned at a hospital on Christmas Eve. No name, no identification. Just a baby in a basket like something from a storybook." She attempted a smile. Except in storybooks, the orphans usually discover they're princesses or have magical powers. Alexander didn't return her smile. Instead, he was looking at her with an intensity that made her shift uncomfortably. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "That was too much information. I don't usually talk about it." "No, please," Alexander said, his voice gentle. "It's just—" He cleared his throat. "It's a remarkable coincidence. You see, my family experienced a tragedy many years ago. My niece went missing when she was just an infant. On Christmas Eve, a strange shiver that had nothing to do with her wet clothes ran up Mia's spine. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said, unsure what else to offer. Alexander nodded, his gaze still fixed on her face. "Your eyes," he said quietly. "They're quite distinctive. The exact shade of blue that runs in our family." Mia set down her cup with trembling fingers. "Mr. Donovan, please call me Alex." "Alex," she amended. "I should go. Thank you for the tea and the clothes." Alexander didn't try to stop her as she stood. Instead, he reached for his wallet, the one she'd returned, and opened it slowly. From behind the cash, he extracted a small photograph, worn at the edges from frequent handling. "This is my sister, Catherine," he said, sliding the photo across the counter toward Mia. "And her husband, James. They died in a car accident 22 years ago, leaving behind a 3-month-old daughter who disappeared from the hospital where she was being treated for minor injuries. The police believed she was taken by someone who worked there, though they never found proof." Mia stared at the photograph, her breath caught in her throat. The woman had her same heart-shaped face, the same slightly crooked smile. And the man, his eyes were exactly like the ones Mia saw in the mirror every day. "This doesn't mean anything," she whispered, even as a long dormant hope flared to life inside her chest. "It's just a coincidence." "Perhaps," Alexander said gently, "but Catherine's daughter, my niece, would be exactly your age now. And she had a small birthmark, shaped like a crescent moon, on her right shoulder blade." Mia's hand moved unconsciously to her shoulder, touching the spot through the soft fabric of the borrowed sweater. The birthmark she'd always had. The one foster parents and doctors had commented on throughout her childhood. "Shaped exactly like a waning moon. This is impossible." she said, her voice barely audible over the sound of rain against the windows. Alexander reached across the counter, not quite touching her but offering his hand, palm up. When you were found, was there anything with you? Anything at all? Mia shook her head, then stopped. Just a blanket, white with yellow ducks. I kept it until I was 12, when one of the foster homes lost it during a move. The memory still stung, the loss of the only thing that had belonged to her from the beginning. Alexander's eyes filled with tears. Catherine embroidered that blanket herself while she was pregnant. Yellow ducks because she didn't want to commit to pink or blue until the baby arrived. His voice broke. We've been looking for you for 22 years, Mia. The world seemed to tilt beneath Mia's feet. She gripped the counter, her knuckles turning white. This couldn't be happening. Things like this didn't happen in real life, and certainly not to people like her. I need to go, she said, backing away. I need to think. Alexander nodded, making no move to stop her. I understand. This is overwhelming. But please. He scribbled something on a notepad and tore off the page. Take my number. Call me when you're ready. Or if you need anything at all. Mia took the paper automatically, folding it into her palm. My clothes? Keep the ones you're wearing. You can return them another time. If you want to. The unspoken question hung in the air between them. If you want to come back. If you want to know more. If you want to be part of this family. Thank you. Mia said, the words inadequate for everything churning inside her. For the tea. And the clothes. And ... She gestured vaguely, unable to name the earthquake that had just shattered her understanding of her own life. Alexander smiled, a smile tinged with hope and heartbreak in equal measure. Thank you for returning my wallet. I think perhaps you returned much more than you realized. Mia slipped out into the night, the rain reduced to a gentle mist now. She clutched Alexander's phone number in her palm, the paper growing damp with sweat or rain or tears. She wasn't sure which. Her mind raced as she walked, barely noticing the direction her feet carried her. A family, her family, a history, a lineage, a belonging that extended beyond herself. Was it possible? Could she believe it? And if it were true, what then? By the time she reached her apartment, a peculiar calm had settled over her. She would call him tomorrow. She would ask the questions that were already forming in her mind. She would take the risk of hoping, just this once. As she unlocked her door, Mia realized she was still wearing the borrowed sweater, the one that had belonged to Alexander's daughter, her cousin perhaps. She pressed the soft fabric to her cheek, breathing in the unfamiliar scent of another life, another world that might, against all odds, turn out to be her own. For the first time in 22 years, Mia Winters fell asleep feeling as though she might, at last, have found her way home. Morning arrived with pale sunlight filtering through Mia's thin curtains. For a moment, suspended between sleep and wakefulness, everything was as it had always been. Then memory rushed back, the wallet, the rain, Alexander Donovan's kitchen, the photograph of people who might be her parents. Mia sat up, her heart pounding. The borrowed clothes were still soft against her skin, tangible proof that last night hadn't been a dream. Alexander's phone number lay on her nightstand where she'd placed it carefully before falling into an exhausted sleep. She reached for her phone, checking the time. 7:43 a.m. Too early to call? She wasn't sure of the etiquette for contacting the man who might be your long-lost uncle after returning his wallet in a rainstorm. A text message alert distracted her. It was from her boss at the diner. Don't bother coming in today, or tomorrow, or ever again. Third time late this month. Your final check will be ready Friday. Mia stared at the screen, a hollow feeling spreading in her chest. She'd been so focused on returning the wallet that she'd forgotten to call in about missing her shift. Now she had no job, no income, and rent due in 10 days. She set the phone down with shaking hands. The universe had a cruel sense of timing. Just when she might have found a connection to her past, her present was crumbling beneath her feet. The phone number on her nightstand seemed to beckon. Alexander had said to call if she needed anything. But how could she contact him now? He would think she was only interested in his wealth, in what he could give her. The thought made her stomach turn. Number. She would figure this out on her own, as she always had. She would find another job, pay her rent, stabilize her life. Then, from a position of independence, she would explore the possibility that Alexander Donovan might be her uncle. Mia showered and dressed in her own clothes, now dry but still carrying the memory of last night's rain. She folded Alexander's daughter's clothes neatly, setting them aside. She would return them eventually, but not today. Today she needed to find work. 4 hours and 6 rejections later, Mia sat on a park bench, staring at the help wanted ads on her phone. No one was hiring, at least not anywhere that would pay enough or start soon enough to cover her impending rent. The November air bit through her jacket, a reminder that winter, her namesake season, was approaching with all its additional expenses. Mia? She looked up, startled to hear her name. A woman stood before her, perhaps in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Something about her eyes seemed vaguely familiar. "Yes?" Mia responded cautiously. The woman smiled, a warm expression that transformed her serious face. "I thought it was you. I'm Julia Donovan, Alexander's daughter." She gestured to the sweater folded on the bench beside Mia. "I see you got my clothes." Mia stood quickly, gathering the folded clothes. "I was going to return these. I'm sorry, Please don't apologize," Julia said, waving away Mia's concern. "Dad told me everything this morning. May I sit?" Mia nodded, making room on the bench. Julia sat beside her, turning slightly so they faced each other. Up close, the resemblance between them was subtle but undeniable. The same arch to their eyebrows, the same shape to their jawline. "So," Julia said, studying Mia's face with undisguised curiosity, "you might be my cousin." "It seems unlikely," Mia replied, the words automatic, a defense against hope. Julia tilted her head. "Does it? Because when Dad called me last night, he was more certain than I've ever heard him. And looking at you now?" She smiled again. "Well, you have our eyes. The Donovan blue, Dad calls it." Mia looked away, uncomfortable with the scrutiny and the casual way Julia referenced a shared trait, a shared heritage. "It's probably just a coincidence." "Maybe?" Julia conceded. "But we could find out for sure. A DNA test would tell us." Mia's eyes snapped back to Julia's face. "A DNA test?" "Of course. Simple cheek swab, results in a couple of weeks. No more wondering, no more maybes." Julia reached into her purse and extracted a business card. "I'm a family law attorney. I can help arrange everything, completely confidentially." Mia took the card, turning it over in her fingers. "Julia Donovan, Esquire. An address in the city's business district. A direct line to certainty." "Why are you doing this?" Mia asked quietly. "You don't know me. I could be anyone." Julia was silent for a moment, her expression growing serious. "My father has spent the last 22 years searching for his sister's child. Every Christmas Eve, he lights a candle and puts it in the window, hoping that somehow, somewhere, Catherine's daughter might see it and find her way home." Her voice softened. "I've watched him grieve for my aunt and uncle, and for the niece he never got to know. If there's even a chance that you're her, don't you want to know?" Mia looked down at her hands. "And if I'm not? If this is all a mistake? Then we'll know that too," Julia said simply. "But Dad seems convinced. And honestly?" She smiled again. "Looking at you, I can see why." A gust of wind swept through the park, sending fallen leaves skittering across the path. Mia shivered and Julia noticed. "Let me buy you lunch," she said, standing. "We can talk more somewhere warm." Mia hesitated. Every instinct honed by years in the foster system warned her to be cautious, to protect herself, to expect disappointment. But another voice, smaller but persistent, whispered of possibility. "I lost my job this morning," she blurted out, immediately regretting the admission. "I was late because of returning the wallet last night." Julia's expression softened with understanding. "Then lunch is definitely on me. And afterward, if you're interested, my firm has been looking for a receptionist. The pay is decent and the hours are regular." "I don't need charity," Mia said quickly. "It's not charity," Julia replied, her tone matter-of-fact. "We genuinely need someone, and I have a feeling you're reliable. After all, you returned a wallet full of cash in the pouring rain instead of keeping it." Put that way, it didn't sound like pity. It sounded like recognition of Mia's character, something she'd rarely experienced. "Okay," Mia said finally. "Lunch. And ... I'll think about the job." Julia smiled, a flash of genuine pleasure crossing her face. "Perfect. I know a great little cafe just around the corner." As they walked, Mia found herself studying Julia's profile, searching for more similarities, more clues. It was strange to see potential family resemblances after a lifetime of studying her own face in mirrors, wondering where her features had come from, who she might look like. The cafe was warm and inviting, with the rich scent of coffee and fresh bread. They settled at a small table near the window, sunlight spilling across the wooden surface between them. "So," Julia said after they'd ordered, "tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up?" Mia gave her the abbreviated version: foster homes, group homes, aging out of the system at 18, working various jobs while taking online college courses when she could afford them. She left out the worst parts: the homes where she'd been treated as free labor rather than a child, the nights spent hungry, the constant grinding effort to simply survive in a world that seemed designed for people with families to fall back on. Julia listened attentively, asking questions that suggested genuine interest rather than pity. When their food arrived, she shared bits of her own life: law school, her recent divorce, her close relationship with her father. "And your mother?" Mia asked hesitantly. "She passed away when I was 12, Julia said. "Cancer. It was just Dad and me after that, plus the extended family. The Donovans are a close-knit bunch." Mia tried to imagine what that would be like, belonging to a bunch, having people who claimed you as their own. It seemed as distant and improbable as living on the moon. "If the DNA test is positive," she said slowly, "what happens then?" Julia set down her coffee cup. "Whatever you want to happen. No one's going to force anything on you, Mia. You're an adult. You get to decide what kind of relationship you want with us, if any." The freedom of choice was both liberating and terrifying. Mia had spent her life adapting to circumstances beyond her control. The idea that she might have options, might be able to choose her own path forward, was almost dizzying. "I think," she said carefully, "I'd like to take that DNA test." Julia's smile lit up her entire face. "I can arrange it for tomorrow if that works for you." Mia nodded, a strange mixture of anxiety and anticipation swirling in her chest. 24 hours from now, she would be one step closer to knowing the truth about herself, whatever that truth might be. After lunch, Julia took Mia to her law firm, a sleek office in a high-rise downtown. The receptionist position was real, not a fabrication to help Mia save face. By the end of the afternoon, after a brief interview with the office manager, Mia had a job that paid nearly twice what she'd earned at the diner, with regular hours and benefits. "You start Monday," Julia said as they stood outside the building afterward. "That gives you the weekend to process everything." Mia nodded, still slightly stunned by how quickly her life was changing. "Thank you," she said. "For lunch, for the job opportunity, for everything." "Don't thank me yet," Julia replied with a small smile. "The job comes with demanding attorneys and complicated filing systems. You might be cursing my name by Tuesday." Mia laughed, surprised by how natural it felt to share this moment of humor with a woman who might be her cousin. "I've dealt with worse." Julia's expression grew serious. "Yes, I imagine you have?" She hesitated, then added, "Dad asked if you'd come to dinner tomorrow night. After the DNA test. No pressure, just... He'd like to get to know you better." "I'd like that," Mia said, realizing as she spoke that it was true. Whether Alexander Donovan turned out to be her uncle or not, there was something about him, a kindness, a decency, that made her want to know him better. They parted with tentative smiles and promises to meet the next day. As Mia rode the bus back to her apartment, she felt as though she were balanced on the edge of something momentous. After years of looking backward, searching for clues to her origins, she was suddenly looking forward, to dinner with the Donovans, to a new job, to possibilities she hadn't dared imagine. That night, she slept with Julia's business card under her pillow, a talisman against doubt, a promise that tomorrow would bring her one step closer to the truth. The DNA testing center was located in a modern medical building downtown. Mia met Julia in the lobby, her stomach fluttering with nerves. "It's simple and painless," Julia assured her as they rode the elevator to the third floor. "Just a cheek swab," Mia nodded, unable to find her voice. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with questions and possibilities. What if this was all a mistake? What if the test was negative? Or worse, what if it was positive? What would that mean for her life, her identity, everything she thought she knew about herself? The testing process itself was indeed simple: forms to fill out, identification to verify, and finally the swab itself, a quick scrape against the inside of her cheek. "How long until we know?" Mia asked as they left the center. "Typically 2 weeks," Julia replied, "but I requested expedited processing. We should have results in 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days of waiting, of wondering, of balancing between hope and fear. Mia wasn't sure how she would endure it. "Are you still up for dinner tonight?" Julia asked gently, as if sensing Mia's turmoil. Mia hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I'd like that." "Great. Dad's cooking his famous lasagna. It's the only dish he knows how to make, but he makes it incredibly well." Julia smiled. 7 o'clock? I can pick you up if you'd like. That's okay. I'll make my own way there. Mia needed the time alone, the chance to gather her thoughts before facing Alexander again. They parted ways, Julia heading back to her office while Mia wandered through the city, trying to calm her racing mind. She found herself in a small bookstore, browsing absently until a book caught her eye. Finding Your Roots, A Guide to Family History Research. The irony made her smile ruefully. Her entire family history might be determined by a laboratory test rather than genealogical research. At 6:30, Mia stood before her mirror, scrutinizing her appearance. She'd chosen her best outfit, dark jeans, a soft blue sweater that brought out her eyes, the Donovan blue she thought with a strange pang, and the one piece of jewelry she owned, a simple silver pendant she'd bought herself on her 21st birthday. Her hair fell in soft waves around her face, freshly washed and dried. She looked hopeful. It was an unfamiliar expression, one she wasn't sure she recognized on her own face. The bus ride to Mapleton Drive seemed shorter this time, the grand houses less intimidating. When she reached Alexander's home, she paused at the gate, taking a deep breath before pressing the intercom button. Alexander answered immediately, his voice warm through the speaker. "Mia, please come in." The gate swung open and she walked up the path to the front door. It opened before she could knock, revealing Alexander in a casual sweater and slacks, an apron tied around his waist. "Right on time," he said, stepping back to welcome her. Julia just arrived as well. The house smelled of garlic, tomatoes, and baking bread, comforting scents that made Mia's stomach rumble appreciatively. Julia appeared from the kitchen, a glass of wine in her hand. "Mia, would you like some wine? Or we have sparkling water juice?" "Water would be fine, thank you," Mia said, following them into the kitchen. The large space was warm and inviting, centered around a massive island where salad ingredients were arranged in colorful piles. A bubbling lasagna sat cooling on the counter, its cheese top golden and perfect. "Can I help with anything?" Mia asked, feeling awkward just standing there. "You can finish the salad if you'd like," Alexander said, handing her a wooden bowl. Julia has many talents, but chopping vegetables isn't among them. "Hey!" Julia protested good-naturedly. "My knife skills are perfectly adequate. For a lawyer, perhaps," Alexander teased, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Mia watched their easy banter with a mixture of fascination and longing. This was what family looked like, the comfortable teasing, the shared history evident in every exchanged glance. As she chopped tomatoes for the salad, Mia found herself relaxing into the domestic scene. Alexander told stories about his work as a retired history professor, his voice animated as he described his current research project on local architectural history. Julia shared anecdotes from her law practice, carefully anonymized but still entertaining. They asked Mia questions too, about her interests, her online courses in psychology, her volunteer work at the community center. They listened to her answers with genuine attention, drawing her out with follow-up questions that suggested real interest rather than polite conversation. By the time they sat down to dinner, Mia felt a warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with the excellent food. This feeling, being seen, being heard, being valued, was entirely new. "I have something to show you," Alexander said as they finished their meal. "If you're interested," Mia nodded, curious. Alexander disappeared into another room, returning with a leather-bound photo album. He set it on the table between them, opening it carefully. "These are pictures of Catherine and James, your potential parents," he said softly. "And this is their wedding day." The photograph showed a young couple, radiant with happiness. The woman, Catherine, had Mia's heart-shaped face and the same slight dimple in her left cheek when she smiled. The man, James, had those striking blue eyes. Alexander turned the page. "And this is Catherine pregnant. About 7 months here, I think." The next photo showed Catherine with her hands resting on her rounded belly, laughing at something off-camera. She looked so alive, so full of joy and anticipation. "And this," Alexander said, his voice growing softer, "is the only picture we have of Catherine with her baby." The photograph was taken in a hospital room. Catherine, looking tired but radiant, held a tiny bundle wrapped in a white blanket with yellow ducks. The same blanket Mia had clung to throughout her childhood, her only connection to a past she couldn't remember. Mia's vision blurred with unexpected tears. She blinked them away, not wanting to miss a single detail of the image before her. "May I?" she asked, reaching toward the album. Alexander nodded, sliding it closer to her. Mia traced the outline of the baby's face with a gentle finger, trying to connect that unknown infant with herself, trying to bridge the 22-year gap between then and now. "What happened?" she asked quietly. How did the baby disappear?" Alexander and Julia exchanged a glance. It was Julia who answered, her professional voice softened with compassion. "Catherine and James were in a car accident when the baby was 3 months old. They were killed instantly. The baby was in her car seat in the back and suffered only minor injuries, a few cuts and bruises. She was taken to the hospital for observation overnight." Alexander continued the story, his voice tight with old grief. "I was in Europe when it happened. By the time I got the call and flew back, everything had gone wrong. Somehow during the night, the baby disappeared from the hospital. Security cameras had been disabled. The night nurse claimed she'd checked on the infant regularly, but around 3 a.m. the crib was empty. There was an investigation," Julia added, "but it went cold quickly. No ransom demand, no witnesses, no leads. The police theorized that someone at the hospital might have taken her, someone with access and knowledge of the security systems. We never stopped looking," Alexander said, his eyes fixed on Mia's face. "Every year we'd check age-progressed images against missing children databases. We hired private investigators. We followed every possible lead. But after 22 years, you begin to lose hope," Mia finished softly. Alexander nodded, a sad smile touching his lips. "Until a young woman appears on my doorstep in the rain, returning my wallet. A young woman with Donovan blue eyes and Catherine's smile, who was abandoned at a hospital on Christmas Eve with nothing but a blanket covered in yellow ducks. The coincidences were too many, too specific. Even Mia, who had protected herself from hope for so long, felt the walls around her heart beginning to crumble. If the test is positive," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what happens then?" "Then you are Catherine and James's daughter," Alexander replied simply. "Which means you are my niece, Julia's cousin. A Donovan by birth, if not by name. And if you want," Julia added gently, "we can help you legally reclaim your birth name. We can help you access the trust fund your parents established for you before they died. We can help you find your place in this family. But only if that's what you want," Alexander emphasized. "You've built a life for yourself, Mia. A life to be proud of. We would never want to disrupt that unless it's something you desire." Mia looked between them, these kind strangers who might be her family. The possibility was overwhelming, not just the material changes it might bring, but the emotional ones. To have people who claimed her, who wanted her, who had been looking for her all these years. "I don't know what I want yet," she admitted. "This is all so sudden." "Of course," Alexander said immediately. "There's no rush, no pressure. Whatever the test results show, whatever you decide, we'll respect your choices." They finished the evening with coffee and a homemade apple tart, the conversation turning to lighter topics. By the time Mia prepared to leave, the tension had eased, replaced by a tentative comfort in each other's company. At the door, Alexander pressed a small box into her hands. "This belonged to Catherine," he said. "I'd like you to have it regardless of what the test shows." Mia opened the box to find a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a crescent moon like the birthmark on her shoulder. "She wore it always," Alexander explained. "Said it reminded her to look for beauty even in darkness, because the moon is never truly gone, just waiting to reveal itself again." Mia closed her fingers around the bracelet, emotion tightening her throat. "Thank you," she managed. "For dinner, for sharing your memories, for everything." Alexander's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Thank you for coming back." As Julia drove her home, Mia sat quietly, the bracelet clutched in her hand, her mind full of images from the photo album. Catherine's smile, James's eyes, a baby wrapped in a blanket with yellow ducks. "Are you okay?" Julia asked softly as they neared Mia's apartment. "I don't know," Mia answered honestly. "It's a lot to take in," Julia nodded. "I can't imagine how overwhelming this must be for you. But for what it's worth, I think you're handling it with remarkable grace." Grace wasn't a quality Mia had ever associated with herself. Resilience, yes. Determination, survival instinct. But grace? That was new. "What if the test is negative?" she asked, voicing her deepest fear. "What if this is all just an incredible coincidence?" Julia was quiet for a moment. "Then we'll all be disappointed," she said finally. "But speaking for myself, I've enjoyed getting to know you, Mia. DNA test or not, I'd like to continue that if you're willing." It was an unexpected answer, a generosity Mia hadn't anticipated. "I'd like that too," she said softly. When they reached her apartment building, Julia insisted on walking her to her door. They paused outside, the night air cool around them. "I'll call you as soon as we get the results," Julia promised. "And in the meantime, I'll see you Monday at the office." Mia nodded, suddenly reluctant for the evening to end. "Thank you, Julia, for everything." Julia hesitated, then stepped forward to give Mia a quick, impulsive hug. "Good night, Mia." Alone in her apartment, Mia sat on her bed, turning Catherine's bracelet in her fingers. The silver caught the light, the crescent moon charm seeming to glow. She fastened it around her wrist, watching how it settled against her skin. Whether the DNA test was positive or negative, something had already changed. For the first time in her life, Mia felt seen. Not as a case number or a temporary responsibility, but as a person with a history, a future, a place in the world. She fell asleep with her hand curled around the bracelet, dreaming of a woman with her smile, a man with her eyes, and a baby wrapped in a blanket with yellow ducks. The weekend passed in a blur of anticipation and anxiety. Mia cleaned her small apartment from top to bottom, organized her online course materials, and even sorted through her meager possessions, trying to keep her hands and mind occupied while she waited. On Monday morning, she reported to Julia's law firm, nervous but determined to make a good impression. The office manager showed her the reception desk, the phone system, the filing procedures. By lunchtime, Mia had settled into a rhythm, answering calls and greeting clients with a professional smile. Julia stopped by her desk mid-afternoon, a stack of files in her arms. "How's it going?" "Good," Mia replied honestly. "Everyone's been very helpful." "They like you already," Julia said with a smile. "Mrs. Hernandez in accounting said you're refreshingly competent." Mia laughed. "High praise, I take it?" "The highest." Julia hesitated. "Dad asked if you'd join us for dinner again tonight." "No pressure if you're too tired after your first day." "I'd like that," Mia said, surprised by how true it was. After a lifetime of eating alone, there was something profoundly comforting about sharing a meal with people who seemed genuinely interested in her company. When she arrived at Alexander's house that evening, she found him in the garden, carefully tending to a late-blooming rose bush. "Catherine loved gardening," he said as Mia approached. "She could make anything grow." These roses were hers. They still bloom every year, as if they're waiting for her to come back and admire them. Mia knelt beside him, touching a velvety petal with gentle fingers. "They're beautiful." "Like her," Alexander said softly. He looked up at Mia, his eyes crinkling with a smile. "She would have been so proud of you, you know. However you came to be who you are, whatever the test results show, she would have admired your resilience, your kindness." Mia blinked away unexpected tears. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, with such certainty about her worth. Inside, Julia was setting the table, humming softly to herself. The domesticity of the scene, Alexander cooking, Julia arranging plates, the three of them moving around each other with increasing ease, filled Mia with a bittersweet longing. This was what she had missed all her life without even knowing it existed. After dinner, they sat in the living room, the fireplace casting a warm glow across their faces. Alexander told stories about Catherine, her determination to become a botanical illustrator despite their father's insistence that she pursue something more practical, her habit of adopting stray animals, her infectious laugh. "She sounds wonderful," Mia said, trying to imagine this woman who might have been her mother. "She was," Alexander agreed. "And James was her perfect match. Quieter, more serious, but with a dry wit that would catch you by surprise. He was a structural engineer, brilliant with numbers and spatial relationships. They complemented each other beautifully." Mia touched the bracelet on her wrist, trying to connect these stories to herself, to find echoes of these strangers in her own personality, her own habits. "I've always been good with numbers," she said hesitantly, "and spatial puzzles. It's why I thought architecture might be interesting to study, though I could never afford the programs." Alexander and Julia exchanged a glance, a flash of something, recognition, confirmation, passing between them. "James would have loved that," Julia said. "He was always building things. Dad still has some of his models in the attic." Alexander nodded. "I'll show them to you sometime if you'd like." "I'd like that very much," Mia replied. The evening ended too soon, but with promises to meet again the next night. As Julia drove her home, Mia found herself already looking forward to it, already missing the warmth of Alexander's home, the comfortable conversation, the sense of belonging that was beginning to take root in her heart. The next 3 days fell into a pattern: work at the law firm during the day, dinner with Alexander and Julia in the evening. Each night, Mia learned more about the Donovans, about Catherine and James, about the family she might belong to, and each night she shared a little more of herself, her struggles in the foster system, her determination to educate herself despite limited resources, her dreams for the future. On Thursday afternoon, Mia was at her desk when Julia appeared, her face pale, a manila envelope clutched in her hand. "The results came," she said simply. Mia's heart seemed to stop, then race forward at double speed. "And?" Julia glanced around the busy reception area. "Not here. Can you take a break? We can go to my office." Mia nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. She followed Julia down the hallway to her private office, a sleek space with a view of the city skyline. "I haven't opened it yet," Julia said as she closed the door behind them. "I wanted us to see it together." Mia sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unsteady. "Go ahead," she whispered. Julia sat beside her, opening the envelope with careful fingers. She extracted a single sheet of paper, her eyes scanning the text rapidly. For a moment, the only sound in the room was their breathing. Then Julia looked up, her eyes filling with tears. "It's positive," she said, her voice breaking. 99.9% probability. You're Catherine and James's daughter. You're my cousin." The world seemed to tilt, then right itself. Mia reached for the paper with trembling hands, needing to see it for herself. There it was in black and white, scientific confirmation of what Alexander had suspected from the moment he saw her eyes. She had a family. She had a history. She had a place in the world that had been waiting for her all these years. "Mia?" Julia's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" Mia looked up, tears blurring her vision. "I have a family," she whispered, the words strange and wonderful on her tongue. Julia reached for her hands, clasping them tightly. "You've always had a family. We just couldn't find you." Mia nodded, unable to speak past the emotion closing her throat. 22 years of loneliness, of wondering, of feeling like a loose thread in the fabric of the world. And now, suddenly, she was woven into a pattern, connected to people who had been searching for her all along. "Dad's waiting at home," Julia said gently. "He wanted to be there when we got the results, but he was too nervous to come to the office. Can you leave now?" Mia nodded again. Work seemed impossibly trivial in the face of this revelation. Julia spoke briefly with the office manager, explaining the situation in hushed tones. Then they were in Julia's car, driving toward Mapleton Drive, toward Alexander, toward the truth that had been waiting for 22 years. Alexander was pacing in the front yard when they arrived, his face lined with anxiety. He looked up as the car pulled into the driveway, his expression a question he couldn't voice. Julia didn't speak. She simply nodded, a smile breaking across her face like sunrise. Alexander's hands flew to his mouth, his eyes filling with tears. He took a step forward, then stopped, as if afraid to move too quickly, to break the spell of the moment. Mia stepped out of the car, moving toward him with hesitant steps. When she reached him, she held out the test results, the paper trembling in her hand. "It's true," she said softly. "I'm Catherine's daughter." Alexander took the paper, glanced at it briefly, then set it aside. With gentle hands, he framed Mia's face, studying her features as if seeing them for the first time. "Catherine's daughter," he repeated, his voice thick with emotion. "James's child. My niece." His thumbs brushed away tears Mia hadn't realized were falling. "Found at last?" And then his arms were around her, strong and certain, holding her as if he would never let go again. Mia leaned into the embrace, feeling something inside her shift and settle, like a key turning in a lock that had waited a lifetime to be opened. Julia joined them, her arms encircling them both, her tears mingling with theirs. For a long moment, they stood together in the autumn sunlight, a family reunited against impossible odds. "Come inside," Alexander said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "Come home, home." Such a simple word, yet it had eluded Mia for 22 years. Now it waited before her, not just a building but a belonging, a place where her history lived in photo albums and gardening tools, in stories and shared memories. As they walked toward the house, Alexander's arm around her shoulders, Julia's hand clasped in hers, Mia felt something unfold within her chest, a warmth, a certainty, a peace she had never known. She was Mia Winters, yes, but she was also Catherine and James's daughter, Alexander's niece, Julia's cousin, a Donovan. And at last, after all these years, she was home. 3 months later, Mia stood in front of the full-length mirror in what was now her bedroom in Alexander's house. The room had once been Catherine's, though Alexander and Julia had redecorated it for Mia, leaving just enough touches of its former occupant, the floral curtains Catherine had sewn, the bookshelf James had built, to create a bridge between past and present. Mia smoothed her hands over the simple blue dress she wore, the color chosen to match her eyes, the Donovan blue that had been her first connection to this family that was now undeniably her own. Today was her official welcome into the extended Donovan family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all gathering to meet the long-lost daughter of Catherine and James. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. A soft knock sounded at her door. "May I come in?" Alexander asked. "Of course," Mia replied, turning from the mirror. Alexander entered, his face lighting up at the sight of her. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Just like Catherine." Mia smiled, touching the bracelet that now rarely left her wrist. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "That's understandable." Alexander sat on the edge of her bed, patting the space beside him. "It's a lot of new people all at once." Mia joined him, smoothing her skirt. "What if they don't like me?" Alexander chuckled. "Impossible. They already love you, simply because you're Catherine's daughter. But more than that, they'll love you for yourself, for your kindness, your intelligence, your resilience." Mia leaned against his shoulder, drawing comfort from his steady presence. Over the past 3 months, they had settled into a relationship that felt natural, as if making up for lost time. Alexander had become the anchor she'd never had, a constant support, a wellspring of stories about her parents, a guide to the family she was still discovering. "I have something for you," Alexander said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a small velvet box. "This was meant to be yours on your 18th birthday. Better late than never, I suppose." Mia opened the box with careful fingers. Inside lay a ring, a delicate band of white gold set with a small sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. "It was your mother's," Alexander explained. "James gave it to her when you were born. She said it reminded her of your eyes." Mia lifted the ring, tears blurring her vision. "It's beautiful. She would have wanted you to have it, just as she would have wanted you to have this." Alexander reached into his other pocket, extracting an envelope, yellowed with age. "Catherine wrote this for you when she was pregnant. She wrote a series of letters, actually, one for each birthday until you turned 18. I've kept them all these years, hoping somehow, someday, I'd be able to give them to you." Mia took the envelope with trembling hands, seeing her name, her true name, Amelia Rose Donovan, written in elegant script across the front. The paper felt fragile, precious, a message across time from the mother she couldn't remember. "I'll leave you to read it privately," Alexander said, standing. "Take all the time you need. The family won't mind waiting a little longer. They've waited 22 years already." When he was gone, Mia carefully opened the envelope, unfolding the pages inside. The handwriting was flowing, confident, the ink slightly faded but still clear. "My dearest Amelia, as I write this, you are still nestled beneath my heart, making your presence known with little kicks and somersaults that never fail to make me smile. Your father claims you'll be a dancer, given how active you are, but I think perhaps you'll be an explorer, always curious, always moving, always seeking new horizons. I wonder who you'll become, what passions will light your eyes, what dreams will fill your heart. Whatever path you choose, know that your father and I will support you, guide you, love you with every breath we take. You are already so loved, little one. Your father talks to you each night, telling you stories about his day. Your Uncle Alex has already filled a bookshelf with children's books, eager to share his love of literature with you. The entire family waits with bated breath for your arrival, ready to welcome you into a circle of love that will support you all your life. I hope as you grow that you'll find joy in small wonders, in the pattern of raindrops on a window, in the perfect spiral of a seashell, in the way sunlight filters through leaves. I hope you'll be kind, even when it's difficult. I hope you'll be brave enough to love deeply, to risk your heart for the people and causes that matter to you. Most of all, I hope you'll always know how precious you are, how completely and utterly loved, not for what you achieve or become, but simply for being yourself. Until I can hold you in my arms instead of my body, all my love, your mother Mia pressed the letter to her heart, tears flowing freely now. These words, this love, had been waiting for her all these years. Even though Catherine and James had been taken from her, their love had somehow found its way back, preserved in Alexander's careful keeping, in Julia's determined searching, in the wallet returned on a rainy night that had led her home at last. She slipped the ring onto her finger, where it fit as if made for her. Then she carefully folded the letter and returned it to its envelope, placing it in her jewelry box alongside the others Alexander had given her. 22 letters, one for each birthday she had spent without knowing who she truly was. Downstairs, she could hear voices, the Donovan family gathering, waiting to meet her. With a deep breath, Mia stood, straightening her dress and wiping away the last of her tears. It was time to step into her future, carrying her past with her at last. Not as a mystery or an absence, but as a foundation, a belonging, a truth that had been waiting to be discovered. As she descended the stairs, Alexander looked up, his face brightening at the sight of her. Julia moved to stand beside him, both of them reaching out their hands to welcome her into the circle of family that had never stopped searching for her. Mia took their hands, feeling the weight of Catherine's ring on her finger, the warmth of Catherine's bracelet around her wrist. She was Mia Winters still, shaped by her experiences, by the life she had built for herself against all odds. But she was also Amelia Rose Donovan, Catherine and James's daughter, cherished and sought and found at last. And as she stepped forward to meet her family, Mia understood at last what Alexander had meant that rainy night when she returned his wallet. She had returned much more than she realized. She had found her way home.